Meantime, as we know, there's not a lockdown in the east, but there is not the same sort of summer trade that would normally be there, especially after millions of people were able to get out of the house and celebrate, what was it, the hot vaxxed summer or whatever garbage they were talking about. And that was largely because the isolation rules, in my view, are still too stringent. Yes, they have changed from everyone who ever knew someone who got COVID to now the people who live in the same house or have had a visitor over their house for 4 hours or longer who ends up having COVID. To give you an idea, every time you know about the total number of cases in the country at any one time, double it and then almost another 50% on top of that, because that's the number of people that are in isolation. That's why you see people who are either nervous to turn around or are unable to go to work. Isolation rules genuinely need to change. I think it makes perfect sense if somebody has been hospitalised, but the idea that just because somebody who has COVID who doesn't have any serious symptoms should still have to stay home for a week. Mates of mine are living in a form of purgatory at the moment where on the 6th or 7th day, just when they think everyone's about to get out, bang, one of the other members of the household end up getting it. So you end up staying there for 21, 28 or even longer days. Shout out to everyone who's feeling that pain right now. But as a result of particularly what's been happening in New South Wales, the state government made an announcement today of about $1 billion. And it was $1 billion to help struggling businesses, particularly if their trade has gone down by more than 40%, on the summer when we were free a couple of years ago. But this is the bit I want to really talk about. Matt Kean is a hardcore lefty Liberal. He's a Turnbull Liberal. Remember, he tried to get a job for Malcolm Turnbull in the New South Wales government so he could bitch and moan about the federal government's position on climate change in the lead up to the last federal election. Thankfully, the former Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, didn't want that to happen, but she still went round to Malcolm's house the following weekend to say sorry. Now, Matt Kean is the Treasurer of New South Wales. He didn't have the numbers to become the Deputy Leader and he didn't have the numbers to become the next Premier. But he's done his best to stand by and watch Dominic Perrottet swing by his own work of the past few weeks and months, but he did pop up today. And funnily enough, the headlines that come out of Matt Kean's appearance today wasn't about $1 billion for struggling businesses. Instead, it was the oh-so-obvious, passive-aggressive, Turnbull lefty swipe at the federal government.
Well, I'm very disappointed. I was hoping to make this announcement standing beside the Prime Minister today and the Treasurer Frydenberg, but they're not to be found. Just like these are not just New South Wales businesses, they're Australian businesses that pay their taxes to the Commonwealth Government.
What a disgraceful piece of work. This bloke white-anting his own side of politics, making it seem like the federal government hasn't shelled out a single cent for businesses since the pandemic started. Well, you know, and I know that's crap. I think one of the best things that we did as a country, and I am eternally proud of it, and I fight with some pretty famous mates about this, but I love what we did when it came to JobKeeper. I love that we were able to create a special social safety net, bang, almost overnight. And that has been transferred into lots of other forms of support that mean millions of people didn't end up on the dole. And if you go right now to the Australian government's website about coronavirus business support, you will find not one, not two, not three, not seven, but 10 different schemes. 10 different schemes that right now, today, you can get on top of the $750 that exist for people who are unable to go to work because of COVID diagnosis or isolation. But because this bloke is trying to skewer the federal government from the lefty Liberal Turnbull position, he goes on television today and makes it seem like the federal government hasn't done anything. Well, you know and I know that's crap. It's billions and billions of dollars that, yes, will take us generations to pay off. But the difference was that millions of people in New South Wales did not end up on the unemployment queue. And the older you are in that unemployment queue, you have little shot of coming back from it. That's just the truth. And not because you don't want to work, but because you know and I know that all of the isms that they talk about in the Sydney Morning Herald every day, the reality is that ageism is the big one that no one wants to talk about. But also, just to drive it home about what side Matt Kean is really rooting for at the federal election, and he couldn't give a stuff about the businesses, by the way. He echoes the exact same talking points of the Labor Party today.
Oh, look, clearly the workers and small businesses of this country need support. And when the workers and small businesses of New South Wales, in this case, needed the Prime Minister and the Treasurer to step up, instead, as usual, Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg have slunk away.
Just BS. Just garbage. And if anyone actually starts falling for this stuff, well then good luck with what's coming if there's a change of government in the next little while. That bloke's plan, by the way, during the pandemic was to bribe people to get vaccinated. They wasted $6 billion from opposition. He wanted to buy Virgin Australia as an airline. That's when they're in opposition. Imagine if they got anywhere near government. And shame on the Premier, by the way, too, in Dominic Perrottet. Now, I'm glad this bloke has the job, but shame on him for A, not pulling Kean back into line, but for standing there and not doing anything to correct the Labor, Turnbull, Climate 200, fake independent talking points that fill our screens all day, every day. Instead, he renews the QR code system in New South Wales for another month, even though no one's actually checking the other side of the data when you check in. Remember this word salad from last week?
There's a high-risk venue, then that, the health team in those circumstances may track and trace. But in the main, we are not. But it's about confidence. The reality is people feel confident checking in. And our job as government is to instill confidence in our people. We all came to the conclusion yesterday that the best thing we can continue to do in this state is instill confidence in our people. And the reality is, for a lot of people across New South Wales, they feel confident checking in. And if that provides the confidence to people to go out.
Forget QR codes, pull that idiot treasurer into line. When you get asked about it tomorrow, say he was wrong. Anything else is a tacit approval of what he says, which of course is the dream of Turnbull and his mates to try to pretend that the government's not doing anything. There's 10 different schemes today